then that coincided with moving to Denver. That's really the only time in my life I really quit playing hockey. I was in a real city for the first time. I was just enamored with all the stuff you can do, and I kind of just fell off from beer league, and then joined a couple of teams. I was in a bit of a rut, and I was like, I got to get back into playing hockey because I know it's what I want to do. And then that's when I realized how much more important beer league was to me than I thought.
So, you having fun yet?
All right. Well, doing our first interview for the Late Game podcast. We're obviously pretty pumped. We made a beer league hockey movie.
It's pretty surreal.
Yeah, pretty cool. Good work.
Thank you. Right back at you.
And, let's give the viewers a little bit of info on our history. We grew up playing hockey together here in the Charleston area, Charleston, South Carolina, at the Carolina Ice Palace, where we shot the movie. So when did you start playing hockey?
At the North Charleston Coliseum when I was 6 years old, which I'm sure you were there too. And Ice Palace opened when we were 9?
1997, November.
Yeah.
So, I think
9 years old. And that's house league to start, and then started doing travel around then.
Yeah, I mean, I did mostly roller hockey until the Ice Palace, and started ice hockey mostly at 9, and then I know we crossed paths many times. I'm pretty sure we played in some kind of something together when we were super young, but I don't know if we necessarily agree on it.
My earliest memory of you is a hockey camp at the Ice Palace that we were both at. And I remember we had similar thoughts on keeping our change locked up. That was the discussion. I don't know why, but that's the earliest I go with you.
I like to remember that. We got like the paranoia, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a fun place to start our our relationship. And so, then we played Junior Stingrays together our senior year of high school, and that was when we, started spending the most time together.
Definitely. We actually played when we were 14, technically, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we played House League at
House
least.
League and that Junior Stingrays team, because there's only 2 teams, so everyone in the league was on the Junior Stingrays, too.
Those were the days. And, okay, but so then we went, Junior Stingrays, high school, we were... it was actually pretty serendipitous that you ended up on that team.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I was on a AAA team of kids from South and North Carolina, and that was going to be the best hockey team I was ever on, but it overlapped with football season. I was about to join that team, and then the team folded because someone embezzled all the money out. And then I was actually stoked because I was kind of wanted my senior year to be a little more normal and not traveling just to 3 hours just to practice every weekend. So that's how we kind of came together, dropped down to House League, and we played on the Junior Stingrays together, and you were my captain.
Yeah, it worked out that way. I mean, I was really thankful that the year before my Junior Stingrays team was really awful, and then we were going to be like not great, and then that team folded and we got better, which was pretty exciting.
Because we got from that same team, it was me, Justin Johnson, affectionately known as Frosty.
Yep.
Joey Stonecipher.
Yep.
And then was Alan Forster too, I
Yep.
think. Yeah. So I mean, that was a pretty stacked House League All-Star team.
I mean, it was a really fun team to play on. Yeah, so our junior A's teams were basically House League All-Stars. We went to tournaments, at least once a month, I'd say.
Yeah, something like that. It was pretty chill.
Yeah, it was pretty relaxed. It was a lot of fun. We won the Lewandowski tournament, which, we've shared that picture on TLG social.
Only tournament I've ever won, ever.
I think probably the same for me. And we actually won it on pretty silly circumstances, if
Definitely.
You recall.
Very much so. Oh, we finished 3rd out of 3 teams, but then the Jacksonville team didn't want to play Charlotte because they were super dirty, so made them go home, and then we beat up on a bunch of 15-year-olds.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like Charlotte, I remember our game with them got real dicey.
Yep.
Some guy got taken in a cop car or something.
Yes, Frosty got bit in that fight.
Yep. Yeah, it was a real mess, but yeah, then they made Charlotte leave, so we got to play in the championship,
and then we won. Yep.
And yeah, but certainly my top memory, I would say, is Frosty's huge hit.
As I was saying, if I could go back and replay any game I played in, it would be that game.
1,000%. I mean, it probably wouldn't be as cool as we remember it, but
I hit a lot of kids. That was a lot of fun.
You hit a lot of kids. Let's just clip that. We'll use that everywhere. And that when we talk about this, sometimes we don't have a ton of video of like when we were kids playing hockey. Kids these days, like everybody's got their camera on them, can watch everything. But for us, it's just we just remember the glory years, you know. So I appreciate that.
One of my fondest hockey memories, definitely with you.
Yes, absolutely. And so, you know, I think that year is probably when we would start to talk about film related stuff. I mean, I think in hockey, we're always talking hockey movies, talking about Mighty Ducks and Slapshot and watching those on tournament buses and stuff like that. So I think, you know, just throughout, you know, that would have been 2006.
Yeah.
So I think just over all these years, we've just long talked about hockey movies and hockey content and how Miracle's the only one with really good action. And, you know, to sort of give the audience an understanding of how we got into, you know, film, like maybe give them a little your background. I can tell them some of my background in film.
Yeah, so I ended up, the next year I played travel hockey again, my first year out of high school. I wanted to keep the dream alive. I wanted to play college hockey really bad, and then suffered a couple really bad knee injuries in back-to-back seasons. And then I had to think about what was next. Like, I'd never thought beyond the next goal of I just wanted to keep playing hockey. So I actually started out in graphic design and was terrible at it. And I know I was terrible at it because we had to be critiqued in front of the class. And I actually did it here where we're recording this podcast at Trident Technical College. And I was really frustrated with that, but I knew I wanted to do something media adjacent, I guess, but I wasn't quite sure. And then I took, for that same degree, took a video editing class. It was Final Cut Pro 7, I think, in those days. And finally, I wasn't the worst in my class at something because I didn't have to draw. I didn't have to know how to do all the stuff. And that was where I was like, oh man, maybe this is what I should do. And Taylor Rizzo plays Hubie in the movie. Our first AD was in the film program here at Trident. And I was like, man, I think this might be what I want to do. I ended up finishing up my graphic design degree and then transferred to Bowling Green State, where I met our goalie, Nick, in the movie, Sean Shapiro. And that's where I started doing film production. And even then, I mean, I technically have a bachelor's degree in film production, but being a filmmaker just seemed completely unattainable.
Yeah.
But I still, I guess delusionally at that time, kept the dream alive that if I was ever going to do anything, I knew it would be a hockey movie.
Yep.
Because that's what I'm most well versed in. And, you know, hockey movies, as much as I love them, outside of Miracle, a lot of them leave a lot to be desired.
Yes.
And I thought, maybe, you know, maybe I can bring something to that table. So that's where my dream stayed alive, at least a little bit back then.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, you know, I'll kind of bring this story full circle. You know, entrepreneur, real estate, film production, cannabis, design, tech, a bunch of fun things. You know, in maybe 8 or 9 years ago, was catching up with my friend Jeff Howard, who is a longtime writer and actor in LA, and, you know, basically had the opportunity to be part of a production company he was starting, and, you know, started working on making comedy pilot presentations, attempting to sell shows, you know, quote, selling 8 episodes and then platforms closing down, lots of stuff like that, as you know. And, you know, meanwhile, brought you on to my overall team as director of media at Salt Shaker Holdings, and, you know, really enjoyed, you know, both making media for the companies, but also getting to work on projects with Big Smiths, with the production company. And yeah, I think as we worked with those guys and like we're on those sets, we kind of started to, I think, at least for me, got a little more confidence around like that we could execute this. And we both agreed that hockey movies often left a lot to be desired, and that's not taking a shit on any of them out there, but they're all fun. Like Mighty Ducks, I used to watch over and over, all 3 of those as a kid. But we wanted to do it our way, and, you know, I think that let's talk about how we actually got started on the late game. You know, I know it initially started with you writing sort of a script for a short. What led you to start that?
Well, like I said, I didn't have a ton of confidence, but I did keep the dream alive that I wanted to write something. I knew if I was ever going to make anything, I had to write it. Like, no one was just going to bring me some amazing hockey script. So I struggled for years. I mean, close to a decade. I'd start up a project. I had these script writing books that were like, essentially it would break it down to a formula. I would find a movie I like and try to sort of force this formula onto a hockey version of it. And it just wasn't fun. I wasn't having fun writing it. So I would work on something for a few weeks, a couple months, and then I would just give up. And I think you talked about hiring me out to Denver to work with you. It was the perfect timing for that. But prior to that, like I said, being a filmmaker seemed unattainable, so I kind of shifted pretty quickly into working in sports. First job out of college was working for South Carolina Stingrays, director of game ops, and then I quickly moved into working in the college football, and that's where I really started to build my toolbox out and gain some confidence. And I got my first camera. I Before content creator was really a buzz term, I was like a one-man production team making content for GamecockCentral.com and the Yahoo Sports Network at that time. Go to a kid's high school, interview him, shoot his game, and then sort of basically making mini documentaries is where I kind of started my storytelling journey, and I really was loving it. But there was only so much I could advance there, and then you came along with a great opportunity, and then that's when I started working on. The first set I worked on was Kingpins, which was a dream come true. I got to be a second AC on that, and it was the coolest thing I'd done to that point, and that was where we really got the itch, I think, and that's where our talks. We'd only talked like, since we were 18, 19, talked about hockey stuff, but I feel like this is where it really gained traction, and then that coincided with moving to Denver. That's really the only time in my life I really quit playing hockey. I was in a real city for the first time. I was just enamored with all the stuff you can do, and I kind of just fell off from beer league, and then joined a couple of teams. I was in a bit of a rut, and I was like, I got to get back into playing hockey because I know it's what I want to do. And then that's when I realized how much more important beer league was to me than I thought of. Because I'm a bit of an introvert, a bit of a shut-in. I realized outside of exercise and a reason to exercise away from hockey so I can enjoy it more, it's kind of like the social tent poles of my week. I played on two teams, Wednesdays and Sundays, and that was really, I realized how much I was looking, when that game was over, I was already looking forward to the next one. And it's just that's how it went week in, week out. And that's when then COVID hits, and that's, I'm finally getting momentum, and I'm feeling good on the ice, and then I can't play anymore because the rink shut down. And so writing that short script was kind of twofold. Well, if I can't play hockey, I'm going to write about it now because that itch, that urge is there. But also with a short, I did a short because there's just less rules. I kept trying to write a feature. We worked on a TV pilot for a little bit. That was like a workplace comedy at the ice rink that maybe if I wrote it in 2005, it could have been something, but it just wasn't bringing anything new to the table. But it was a good exercise. That was one of the few things I actually saw through to the end.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that was like, following the rink manager basically, and we had a lot. I think there's a little bit of that life kind of carried over into the late game.
Like Parks and Rec meets Always Sunny meets a couple other things, and I'm going to briefly interject about you getting back into beer league. Obviously, I played in high school, then I played like intramurals in college, and I moved to Chicago after I went to school at Boston University, and I tried to join men's league teams, and it's just, we speak to this in the movie. It's like, it's hard to make friends as an adult, but also like for me, if I don't like the team, if I'm not enjoying the company of the guys, it is really hard to like convince myself to get to that 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock game and be awake, especially now that I have kids. It's extra hard to convince myself that it's worth the lack of sleep. And so my over that next sort of decade after school, I played sparingly. Like, you and I go to the Baycrest Pro-Am in Toronto every year, so that would be like one of two times I'd be on the ice all year. And then while we were working on the movie, like in COVID and stuff, I was really getting the itch. Obviously had my first son, and I was like, oh man, I got to be able to play hockey by the time he can. And we started our Friday morning drop-in skate at DU, which is awesome, and that sort of got me the itch again. Joined multiple teams, and certainly I have a lot easier time going to the games for like the team that has guys I love on it versus like a bunch of dudes that just show up, get in the ice, and ditch. But it's brought so much like joy to my life, being able to get back on the ice, and like it's hard, when you haven't played in a long time, it is so exhausting. You feel like absolute shit, kind of like Riley in the movie. But once you sort of get in a rhythm, it's just so much fun and brings joy and is such an escape on the ice. And I think we addressed that a little bit in the film as well. And so come COVID, you start writing the short. And I know you brought it to me, and we kind of read through it, right?
Yeah, and like that's a great point you bring up too about being when you don't really know anybody in the room. So it's just one line in the final cut. I'm glad it's in there of, it's not that Riley's just the new guy. He actually played a game and then just kind of ghosted everybody, which is how it went for me. I joined this team as a free agent and I was convinced, oh, I suck. These dudes fucking hate me. And it would be a game night and it's a 10:30 game and I just would convince myself, I fucking suck. These dudes hate me. I'm not going to show up. Like, I'm just not going to do it. So I essentially ghosted a team for an entire season after like 2 games.
Just like Riley.
Yeah, convinced these dudes didn't want me around. And then, Big Bear, there's a championship one week. They waste no time. The next season starts the next week. And they asked me back. And I was so like touched that like they actually wanted me back. And it could have just been as simple as they needed guys. But the fact that they actually took the time to reach out to me, it really meant a lot. So was like my first real season with these guys. And the sort of the bones of that first short I wrote was based on a game from this league. We were playing a team of 18-year-olds called, I think, the Young Biscuits, and they were just smoking everybody in the league. And I was really not pumped. This was like my second game back, and I wasn't doing great. And I kind of kept my head above water. We stayed with them. Our goalie, shout out to Andrew, played great. And we find ourselves kind of in this close game against a team that's beating everybody by 10 plus goals, just running them through. And I throw this shitty shot on net in the last minute of a game. We tie it up. I scored the winner in the shootout, and it was absolutely like the shot in the arm I needed to be like, okay, I'm back to playing hockey now. Yeah. Like, and I love this, and I'm having fun. These guys liked me. We actually hung out outside of the rink. So I went from I've been in Denver for 3-4 years at this point. I didn't really have friends outside of the office. So now I had a social circle. And like, that's where it really, that off the ice impact kind of hit me. And I was playing on my current team now, shout out to the Pizza Boys, on this team too. But so that, it just gave me a new perspective. So I was basically, Riley was my pure POV when I started writing this. So I really tried to lean into that, use that one game I was talking about sort of as the bones, because I'm sure we've played hockey so long. If you just think about hockey, it's information overload. And I think that was a big problem I had in that writing stage that was unsuccessful, is I wasn't anchoring myself to anything specific. It was just hockey. And so the first thing I did is I essentially wrote a Bible for the game. I wrote almost every minute accounted for. And I mean, you saw every version of the script. That the hockey action in the script kind of stayed the same from the first draft all the way through.
Until we got to set.
Yeah, very little changed until we started shooting the movie. But that was, I think, the big thing is I needed something specific to tie to, and then I wanted to write a short just because I was getting too ingrained in the beat book, the formula of writing a feature, but then. When I was so nervous to show it to you, which is like silly as hell in hindsight, but like, because you would have loved it no matter what, but like, and we did. I think it's funny. I didn't even have a role for you in mind yet. It was just like we had something going, and then you just were like, "This is great. What would a feature length version?" And then draft number 2 was feature length, and then the next 150 drafts. We tried so much stuff, and I got to where I wasn't afraid to show people the script now, and. I mean, that was a journey in itself. Just the writing process was a journey in itself. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's like we've gone through all these different journeys. And I think, my perspective, one, obviously I want to make a hockey movie, but also thinking of getting kicked in the nuts so many times in Hollywood is like, really want to make our own feature. We thought we could stretch $1. We did. We stretched dollars very far, we ended up having to increase the budget and to stretch it a little bit further. But, I was convinced that we could make a movie. And, shorts are cool, but I didn't want to end up with something that wasn't really saleable at the end. I wanted to, if we're going to do it, let's do it. So I loved that you jumped in, wrote the feature, and then just to give people an idea, every few months he'd bring me a new draft. We'd read it out loud together, which was awesome. It'd be really fun days. And we'd make notes and come up with ideas, and so many of the stuff we talked about in my office makes it into the film, and it's fun to see how it's evolved.
Definitely. And I mean, that's the wild part is I made so many choices too. So I had every intention of, I remember when I kind of gave you sort of the first budget proposal, my thought was it would have been a way shittier movie, but I had every intention of I was just going to use my camera that I already had. Maybe we rent another one. And if it was just me on skates with a handheld rig, like that's how we were going to shoot it. Like I was fully prepared to, and that's why I did it as a short first of just like, if it was just going to, like, let's just say you didn't like the script or you had something else with Big Smiths was going to come up. Like I had every intention of, if I have to max out some credit cards, take out a loan, I'm going to reserve 5 days at the Ice Palace and we're going to shoot this however we have to do it. Thankfully, it didn't go down that road. And thankfully, Jeff Van Gerwen found us and made it what it is today. Like it would have been infinitely shittier had we not found him. But
and that's our director of photography.
Director of photography, Jeff Van Gerwen. And it's what it is now is just, that's the collaborative process that I think in my head when I was writing it, I could never count on. I just like, that was kind of the scariest part is we're going to bring people I don't know to work on my dumb idea. But then back to the writing process of just like, the reason Tyler, Grayson, Kevin, Proton, they're in the movie is like, those are my friends that still lived in Charleston. And I was like, I can call in favors with these guys and they can help. So like, it actually made the creative process easier because it was like, let's make choices that making it the most realistic.
Right. Like if you're casting Tyler, he's not an actor, he's playing a version of himself. Let's just write Tyler.
Yeah. And that helped with the writing process too. It's like, I'm just going to, because I've been in plays in high school where it's like, oh man, I don't want to have a big monologue or something. Like, please have my lines be easy to deliver. So that's how I did it. I had you in mind for John Calamino, but like, I remember it was a 50-50 shot. You might have been Mark the Ref at that point, but I knew that this John character was going to do the heavy lifting with exposition, with like, John would have the meteor lines. I knew Proton just had that natural charisma, so it gave him a little bit more. And then from the start, I was always like, well, we'll find someone with acting experience to be Riley, surely, right? Yeah. And we lucked out with Alec, too.
Yeah. Getting Alec Rush to play Riley was like a huge, huge win. I mean, we had a lot of things that just kind of fell into place, thankfully. Like, obviously the most work we've ever put in anything, but we got lucky on a few things. And I know that we put a post on Reddit about how we were shooting a hockey movie. We were looking for ideally someone with acting experience that was also a hockey player. And like, important to us is like, so many hockey things out there content-wise just look fake. They don't look like real hockey. Real hockey players watch it, and like a real hockey player didn't make this. You watch our movie, I think if you play hockey, we play hockey.
Yeah.
Everybody's wearing their own gear, and so it was really important to us that every player on the ice was a real hockey player. And so, yeah, we posted on Reddit about this, and I think that's where Alec came from. Right?
Shout out to Reddit. So we got a lot of great. So I went to the Hockey Players subreddit and just posted that I was making a movie, and it's like, if you're interested, submit. And we had a lot of great, enthusiastic people that I wish could have been part of the movie, because like it was so much enthusiasm in those emails I got, but so much of it was like, I know we don't have, like, we could fly someone in if it made sense, but really it was going to be like, can you take 2 weeks off of work and drive yourself to Charleston? Probably not, And Alec was the only person who submitted to that with any acting experience. And we had like a short list of sort of Riley callbacks, but he was pretty much the only one who responded to that.
Yeah.
And I can't be thankful enough that worked out. Because I said to you before I made that post on Reddit, I was like, if we can get one person from this, it's worth it.
Agreed. And then I think that's eventually how Jeff Van Gerwen, I think that's how he eventually found us.
Yeah. So I posted to the filmmakers subreddit just asking questions about different platforms. I'm trying, we not only writer, director, editor, but like me and you did so many pre-production roles too, just out of necessity. And so I'm asking kind of just questions about how to do XYZ. And we were really like on the 1 yard line of hiring another director of photography who was a total pro out of LA. Like I have no question to that guy.
He almost might have been like too pro for us.
Yeah. I think 100%. Like, I don't know, probably not say his name, but he was very cordial, very professional. But every time we talked to him, I got more anxious, more nervous. Yeah. And I mean, that's not saying a lot. I was an anxious wreck for like a year leading up to this, and even worse, getting closer.
Yeah, it's nothing against him. It just wasn't the right fit.
Yeah, it just wasn't the right fit because his first equipment proposal was like twice our intended budget, So it's like it was, and then we've agreed to a deal in principle with him, haven't signed paperwork yet, and then I just get a Reddit message, which I never get.
And he messaged me on Instagram too.
Dude, I love that. And he was just like, you probably already filled the role, but I'm a filmmaker based out of New Orleans. I would love to work on a hockey movie. And I was like, well, here's the script. Can you talk to us by like 9 a.m. tomorrow morning? And he was like, yeah. And we talked to him, and this goes for every conversation I had with Finn up to shooting, of just like every time we talked to him, I calmed down. Yeah. He made me so calm, of just like his confidence, his professionalism, his enthusiasm. And like was the single biggest, like, not to diminish anyone else, but I mean, it started with him. He was the biggest hire we made.
Yeah, I call him the linchpin and the success of the film for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't imagine it. Like, we still would have made it without him, but it would not have been nearly. It wouldn't have been the movie it is today.
It couldn't have been. And I remember that first call with him. We both got off and we were like, yeah, this is a fit.
Yeah, because like we knew logically that the first guy is like. Yeah, I mean, he checks these boxes. He knew people. He knew people from the crews of I, Tonya, from that Mighty Ducks series on Disney Plus. Like, he already had sort of, like, he checked a lot of boxes, but it just didn't, subconsciously, it did not feel right. And then one conversation with Finn, we're just like, yeah, this is it. Let's do it.
And so, yeah, I think it was definitely like the mesh of the personalities. And also was part of it was like, you know, someone that had worked on sort of ice content before, it scares us a little bit because we don't like most of it.
That's a good point.
So yeah, I mean, it was just like incredible what we were able to accomplish with that. You know, getting Alec from Reddit and like going back and like looking at some of the enthusiasm we got, but like limited responses back maybe for some of the follow up. It's just crazy now to look back because I'm, you know, hopefully the movie's successful, people love it, and they're like, man, I wish I did that. You know, and
we know two people in our circles who probably feel that way.
Yeah, 1,000%. I think like when you're asking your friends to like take 2 weeks off of work to make a movie, it sounds kind of ridiculous.
The fact that, I mean, we had multiple people get fired from their like Proton. You know, like he cleared it with his job, but he still lost his job. Like we had people quit their jobs to do it because it was just that was the most humbling thing for me. And like I would always. When we're talking, like when we were shooting, I would be so apologetic to the guys, be like, "Yeah, sorry, the scene's running long. Like I know you've been here all day, and I just like this. So much of that shooting was a fugue state from the lack of sleep. But one of the things that always stands out to me was Proton was just like, dude, like we're doing this because we love you. If this was Kevin's movie, none of us would be here. But you know, it's like we're here because we love you. So it's like that was the biggest thing for me is so many people, especially on the crew, on the cast side, because we're not paying them enough to make it enticing, you know, like the fact that they're putting their lives on hold for 2 weeks to help this silly little movie idea I had was like the wildest part of all of it.
Yeah. And also I think all of that dedication from our friends, like gave us the desire like to excel, you know, like made us like want to make this as awesome as possible so that their sacrifice was worth it. And I think we've done that, you know, the audience will tell us, I suppose, but, it was really remarkable to see, and like even people that generally aren't punctual and stuff like that, we somehow got this done.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing is no one bailed. Like think about just getting guys together for brunch. Like how many people would bail from something like that? And we got 2 weeks of. You know, we knew there were some gaps in people's schedules. Like I have to be Proton for the first 5 days of shooting, which was its own set of challenges on top of this is the first feature film I've ever directed, and now I'm body doubling on top of that. But it all worked, you know, like and we had plenty of challenges along the way too. And the fact that, you know, the compressors breaking didn't completely like we couldn't have recovered if the ice palace had to shut down, you know, for like 2 weeks to fix things.
Yeah, and maybe in another episode we can dig into some specifics on the shoot and everything that went right and wrong. But overall, I mean, it was like, you know, I think our average rink day was like you and I would get there at 10 a.m. and we'd leave sometime between 3 and 6 a.m.
Yep.
And then do it again, and yeah, it's all kind of a blur, but like the adrenaline kept us going. Like whenever, you know, obviously having 2 young kids, I don't get a ton of sleep, but like whenever I'm just like drowning in lack of sleep, I'm like, I made it through the shoot, I can do this.
Yeah, that's the thing is you had to keep it one day at a time, because man, on like day 5, looking ahead and thinking we've got 9-10 more days of this, I had some low points for sure, but it was all worth it. And I just can't imagine doing any other kind of work now. Like it gave me such an itch to just like this is all I want to do now.
I feel 100% on that. Like, let's just make more movies. Hopefully this one's successful. Hopefully somebody else can pay for the next one. So
that would be nice.
We can have us a little.
Because that was one of the most stressful things to me is like when your best friends in the world is like putting finances on the line. Like that was my biggest fear going into it. Is like if this whole thing blows up in my face, not only do I feel like I wasted this once in a lifetime opportunity, I feel like I've let you down. Like I voiced this to you, and you did so much to alleviate that stress, but it was still like there was so much skin in the game for all of us that I just was so afraid of failure. But honestly, by about day 4, when we really kind of rejiggered our production process, is like that anxiety plummeted the next few days. And then it just became task at hand kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we got good at just sort of focusing on the day ahead. Like, in those, we could only shoot technically for 12 hours, or at least we were trying to keep everybody that we were non-union, but then we would spend hours planning the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean,
you, Finn, Rizzo, Rachel.
I would get back to your childhood room, close my eyes, and it felt like I just would open them up and it was time to go.
Yep.
Like, oh man, but I wouldn't trade at all. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, it was a dream and really, really excited to get it out there. I mean, it's like, so just to share some context, right today we're showing it to the cast and crew for the first time, and that's going to be the first group setting that we've seen it in. That'll be really cool to see. Obviously, cast and crew might be a little biased. And the next day we're showing a bunch of friends and family. So I think it's going to be really rewarding for us to see reactions, to see like a crowd response, even if it is why not start with a warm crowd, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that I think that's going to be really fascinating for us to see, and it will be extra rewarding through the whole process. And I hope the sky's the limit. I hope that the late game is a movie and a brand that can be part of hockey culture for the foreseeable future, the same way that we still talk about Slapshot.
Yeah, I've been caught in this weird spot, and I've voiced the same thing to my therapist of like, I don't need audience validation to think that this is a successful movie. Like the fact that we have a movie is a success in itself. And it could be not great and it would be such an accomplishment. But talk about going up to the wire. I was just in LA with our final sound mix. Like we just got color done. And I just wish if I could Bill and Ted time travel and show the person who was having anxiety attacks before we started shooting that like, this is what it's going to be. Like, it's so much better than my wildest dreams. And I really do hope everyone loves it as much as we do. Yeah. But there's always going to be haters for anything. And like, I was really worried for a time too. It's like, oh man, is the first person who chirps me about how much my movie sucks, is it going to make me crumble? And no, like I couldn't be more proud of this.
Yeah.
And I really, maybe it's naivete. I really believe like the hockey community is going to fully embrace this.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. Like one, I believe hockey people at the very least are going to love it. I hope it goes beyond that. I think it does. It's warm and heartfelt and real. And yes, I'm very much also at the point of like, I don't really give a fuck what people say, because we made a feature film and it's like a pretty solid feature film. Like it looks right and sounds right at the very least. So I feel incredibly proud and accomplished even after we just finished the shoot and we had our like 33 hours of footage or whatever. I was just like, well, that was a feat.
Definitely. It was, once we just started seeing dailies, I know it was a discussion of what camera to use, like what should our camera package be, and Finn felt really adamant about going with that red Gemini. And I think we could have accomplished a great look with another camera, sure, but like I think that lends such a subconscious element, because you just know when you're watching something if it feels off. Like you might not be able to describe why it feels off, why you watch someone's student film and you know it's a student film.
Yep.
It can be exposed properly, lit properly, and all these things, but it's just there's always a subconscious element. You're like, well, yeah, I'm not watching a Leonardo DiCaprio movie or something. But with our movie, like it's not going to be recognizable people so much in it outside of R.A. and maybe Zach Bell, but like that was my one thing when we started showing the trailer around privately a few months ago. That was like the most common response is like, it looks like a real movie.
Yes.
And some people were afraid to tell me that, like that was like a cutting remark. I was like, no, I get what you're saying. And I like, that's that magic that Finn brought to the table.
Yeah. It's like when you ask, and just for clarity, like we paid the crew as much as we could. Like they generally got pretty solid rates, but most of the cast was our friends that was, like we said, taking off 2 weeks of work and putting some faith in us. And like, they probably weren't expecting to see a quote real movie come out of it. And like, so I'm really proud of us and proud of the team and the team that we built, and all the awesome help we got from everyone, especially Trident Tech where we're recording right now. I'm really excited for the future of the film, because we're recording this before anyone's really seen it, outside of our team. I'm kind of interested in discussing sort of our predictions for certain responses, maybe to certain characters or to certain things in the movie. Obviously, we don't want to give anything directly away in this, but like, for instance, Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin is hilarious. We all think he's funny. Like, we love shitting on him. Um, I'm curious to see like how that translates to an audience, whether like how much of loving to shit on him is us versus like how much is the character, and like, are people going to see him in public and say, "Eat shit, Kevin"?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, when you bring that up, I'll bring up like James Parnell, our mixer, was like, he's grew up playing hockey. His brother he's played currently in the ECHL. So like his comment was about like how this feels like you hit so many different archetypes of a team that even the Kevin stuff. Like, I guess my concern was, I mean, are we going now? Like,
Yeah, this is recording.
Okay,
Right?
yeah, so
yeah.
I knew we took a little break. So
Oh yeah, no, we're back in it.
okay, so yeah, with like Kevin specifically, I could see some almost like the Alec response of like, you got like, if someone watched the movie but will know they didn't finish it, is like when they say we rail on Kevin too much and it's like toxic. But then like what I love about the whole Kevin thing is that's just the real life dynamic of him. But I think the single, if we had to boil it down to the single sweetest moment of the movie, I think it's when the guys give Kevin the goal puck, and I guess that's a spoiler. I don't know, but that shows that you can plenty of guys on teams. There's a different dynamic to the way you talk when you're on a team with guys, and you've grown up in this sport.
Yeah.
And that's that moment where everyone on the team loves them.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is the dynamic.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective, because like just thinking back, like my dad didn't get the chance to play many team sports growing up for a variety of reasons, but he never liked that, like the way my friends and I enjoyed each other's company was talking shit about each other. He was like, he thought it was so mean, and I'm like, no, it's endearing. And like the reality, and at least in hockey, is like if you're not getting chirped, like you're probably not one of the boys.
Yeah, it's a great point. Is like, yeah, that's truly the love language of so much of hockey, and it's it's always going to change a little bit, but I think that's always going to be at the heart of it. Is just busting balls. That's the sort of brotherly environment of the locker room for sure.
Yeah, and I love that with the late game. It's like, the movie is pretty much all positive. Obviously, there's chirping, there's some shit talking, whatever, but it's mostly really positive, and I think there's a lot of ways it couldn't have been. There's certainly plenty of beer league teams that suck and that are assholes and etc.
There's no shortage of toxicity in the sport, whether that's competitive leagues, beer leagues, what have you. Like as cheesy as it sounds, we only started this as like, this is a love letter to hockey, not just beer league hockey, predominantly beer league, but just like it goes beyond that. And we really wanted to highlight the positives, because even if I know it's like the NHL's used this slogan and, their actions might not always back it up, but I really do believe that like hockey's for everyone. And, if you are someone different, whether that's skin color or what have you, you don't have to look too hard to find the pieces of shit in the sport. But at that same time, like, I think what kind of gets lost in that shuffle is how many wonderfully accepting places there are for that too. And like, maybe you have to look harder for it, or maybe it just doesn't get the publicity that the negative gets. But I do think there is a warmth in the sport that is just it. I don't even think a lot of people that play it consciously know it until it's gone.
Yeah, like hockey's a family. Like, it's a small community. It's like two people removed from everybody. And yeah, there's very much that warmth. You tell somebody you play hockey, you can start a full conversation, talk for a really long time. And like you said, there obviously is toxicity within the community, but the good stuff doesn't get highlighted enough. And I like that we're showing like, this is what it can be. This is what it is for some people, is like this opportunity to make friends or to connect with your friends and just to take a break from life. I think we give a good feel of that in the film, that like when you're playing an 11 o'clock beer league game, it kind of feels like it's the only place in the world.
100%. And like, that was a note you gave me when we were still in the writing phase. And I mean, I think it was there. Like, maybe I didn't have that conscious thought, but I think we leaned into it further after that, of just, this is the only place. Like, every sane adult is in bed while this game's going on, and that's what I love about it. And like, that's what we're talking about. Like, when we're not attached to a team, that's one of the reasons why it's hard to make it out there. Is just like, I'm in my cozy place at home, and like, I think maybe it could have been executed a little bit better. But I like that we just kind of get through it and get to the rink of the beginning. Is like, Riley is cozy at home, and Proton gives him that little extra nudge, and he's he's like, yeah, I am going to do this, because I think there is real life and then there's the rink. And with me personally, like, it starts when I'm driving to the rink. Like, I am the outside world doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
whatever I'm going through, whatever else is bothering me for 3 hours and change, on the drive to and from, like, that's usually about the full time is about 3 hours, depending if I hang much after. But like, it's like a field trip, a vacation from real life. And it took being away from it to realize how much I like cherish it.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Even like my decade where I didn't play a ton, like I would often think about it, but it was just really daunting to think about getting in and then finding your group and um it but now like when I did get in a rhythm again, it's like, damn, I cannot let that happen again. I don't want to let that lapse. Like, we play with some super old guys, and like I was reading about a tournament recently that's like all 80 something year olds, and like I pray that I am physically capable of that at their age, but as long as I can, I really want to make sure to at least play once or twice a week.
Oh, dude, well, yeah, when we do that tournament in Toronto, that we play with multiple guys that are, I mean, what would you call the bench line? Over 70, if not
Yeah, at least
75.
60,
And it's
yeah.
just like, and they're not just out there barely getting by. Like, they are active
Still good.
participants in the game. And I pray, I mean, I feel like I got a 60-year-old's knee right now, but I pray I can do that. Even, I don't know, 50, 60, I would kill for that.
Yeah, it brings me back to like one of the years we were there before at least I had gotten back into playing regularly. I don't think you had yet either. And one of our teammates, Adrian, we were talking to him, and he was like, yeah, I play like 3-4 times a week. And we were like, yeah, I play like 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah.
But he's like, he's like in his 60s.
Yeah, that's the inspiring stuff at that trip. I love it. So yeah, and now look at us. I mean, when we're really going, we're playing 2-3 times a week. And like you briefly mentioned your morning skate on Fridays. That's the highlight of my week. Like that's because as much as I love my beer league stuff, that can get intense. And like it's nice to have a guaranteed skate where I don't think a fight's gonna break out. You know?
No, yeah, we do 8 a.m. every Friday morning at TU, and it's just a really good group of guys. Whole range of skill levels. Great place to come if you're getting back from an injury or something like that, especially. And it's just, it's a fun skate. Like, I honestly wish we could do that 2 or 3 times a week and it would work for everybody's schedule, because I'd like that to be most of my hockey, and then maybe like one beer league team I'm attached to. I've been going between 2 and 3 beer league teams. At my peak, I was playing 4 times a week within the last year or two. But yeah, now I'm at like 1 or 2 times a week. But I think that vibe that we have that Friday mornings is really nice, and just getting in the groove is important. And I would say if there happens to be somebody watching or listening that has taken a long break from hockey and feels daunted about getting back into it, like, find a chill skate that you can try it out at and work your way in. And if you're in Denver, hit me up and you can try it out at our skate. But it's so worth getting back in. And like, I'm on one team. We had a guy join our team who hadn't played in years, and he, similar to when I first got back in, he was just so like exhausted out there dying. Like, we felt it, we know it. And I kept trying to encourage him, but he ultimately disappeared.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I get it though. Like, I mean, like I just talked about it. It's tough not to be in your own head, be hard on it, but like you find the right group and it kind of all comes together.
Yeah. So, we've talked a little bit about the future of the late game and how we hope it's integrated into the hockey community. Specifically with this podcast, I think we hope that it can start out at least as sort of a learning experience about the film. We hope to do individual interviews with a bunch of the different cast and crew. Let's talk about where we see it going.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot. Like a little behind the scenes sort of focus for, I don't know if you'd call it a first season or however many episodes, but I like the idea of you get I think podcasts in general can get a little diluted when you have too many people on it. Maybe everybody doesn't get enough of a platform or time to talk. So I like the idea of almost every episode being like, this is this person's focus. We can dive more into this, because everyone had a different experience on here. So I love to hear about, while we're, like you said, getting in at 10 a.m., leaving at 3 in the morning, like we're the guys, we're having to plan the next day. But, a guy like Proton, he's showing up at a different time, and his stuff is a different vibe. So I'm pumped, especially because, like I said, we were in this fugue state there's so little that I kind of anchor around that I can think of, and there's so much that like I've had people like whether it's Tyler or Kevin like bring something up, I'm like, yeah, don't remember that at all. Either
Yeah.
I wasn't there or I just was not mentally present for it.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting for us to hear the other perspectives because ours is so specific. Definitely something I've thought of. Excited to sort of feel that out, and curious what it was like to not be going the entire time. Just when we talk about leaving between 3 and 6 a.m., I just remember the time that the figure skaters started walking in for their 6 o'clock skate, and we're still there working. And we're like, oh shit, I guess we didn't have to lock up.
We
today.
didn't have to lock up. Yeah. Oh man, yeah, that was good stuff.
And yeah, I mean, huge thanks to the Carolina Ice Palace and all of the trust and help there. And
that is something I wanted to bring up. Yeah, earlier I forgot to. I mean, think about all of these like touchstones of because we always wanted this to be explicitly said in the South. Like that was a big part of it because that was, hockey. I've gotten to play hockey kind of in 3 different ecosystems: South Carolina, Ohio, Denver, and the amount of overlap is huge. I don't know what you would assign it to, but that Venn diagram, there's a lot of overlap. But the South in particular, like I feel like we kind of the juxtaposition of the people who live in the South and the sport within that was always kind of a fun one. The fact that we get the Ice Palace in here, the Stingrays are prominently featured. We reference Bojangles, Waffle House. Like I'm really pumped of the local flavor that made it into the final cut.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. And that's when we were writing that pilot show, like that was a big part of it is like the ice and hockey community in the South. It's something we grew up with that it has a very specific, different flavor. Like you were saying, that the parts where the Venn diagram differs are pretty specific. So like, whether it's like most people aren't on the ice with guys that are, going mudding and hunting after,
Yeah, we've some colorful folks we grew up with, and then it's because the Ice Palace growing up there, that was essentially like I'm from a town of 1,200 people, very small town, St. George, South Carolina. The Ice Palace, in a lot of ways, is a small town baked within of Charleston because, I mean, when we were growing up playing, you didn't have to play on a team with like we knew who everyone was. Like whether I played with somebody, you could bring up a name or a face, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I've seen that guy 100 times. I don't know who he is, but I definitely know who that person is.
Yeah, no, I like the way you put that. I don't know that we've mentioned it specifically like that as like being a small town, but like, like Denver has, I think like 11 rinks in the surrounding area or whatever. So it still has that sort of small hockey community vibe. You still know people, but it's very different from Charleston, which is 1 rink, 2 sheets. Everybody that plays hockey in the area plays there. So like you literally know everyone. And I mean, that can obviously lead to some tough things. Every hockey community, especially the youth hockey, has politics around it. But it also leads to like a very communal sort of family vibe.
Yeah, definitely. I was in the business, like when I had my beer league teams here in Charleston, I was always the person in charge of them, which was a nightmare. But down the stretch before moving to Denver, like our leagues got toxic as shit because we're playing the same 4 teams for like 4 straight years. Like there's no variety there. So that's one of the things I actually like the most about playing out in Denver is there's a little less toxicity in the rivalries, I guess.
No, that's a good way to put it because like, when I'm playing in 2 or 3 leagues at different rinks, it's like you don't see the same teams that much. I don't even remember.
I can't keep like people will say what team we're playing and I can never keep it straight, which I love that part. Yeah.
Yeah, like people will talk about certain players in their team. I was like, and even if we just played them, I'm like, nah, I don't really remember.
Yep.
Like, yeah, it was just another team.
Yep.
So yeah, it's definitely different in that regard. Whereas like I think the late game has that vibe of like when we played in Charleston, like even I, in between college and stuff, played men's league here. Like everybody on the ice.
Yep. And even like when we were growing up, like everyone that plays at in Charlotte, Greenville, like Augusta, Greensboro, Raleigh, like. Yeah, so even outside of Charleston, it still had that small town vibe of just like I feel like once you've gone through a season, you've played almost everybody in the Southeast. It feels like.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And it's, we got to grow up in an era where hockey was growing in the South and the Southeast. Obviously the NHL expanded, and I think some of it's gone great, some of it hasn't. But I think what the numbers will show is that hockey has grown tremendously as a sport for both youth and adults to play, and. For me, I've always loved the idea of getting people involved in hockey that otherwise wouldn't have or hadn't had the chance yet, especially underprivileged communities, because it's an expensive sport, trying to help people get into it. And, you may remember in high school, I went to a tiny school that had 3 hockey players, and I recruited a team of guys somehow and got all their equipment donated, etc. And, we were terrible, but everybody had so much fun. Like being on the ice, even if you suck, is so fun.
Yep. I remember those games. Porter Goud, shout out.
Yeah. We did get better over the couple years at least.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you had some real players. The top, what was it? Ross Jones?
Ross Jones, yeah, Grant Story.
Yeah, y'all had some good ones. My favorite, just to shout out, my favorite moment of my high school hockey days is when y'all's inaugural ceremonial face-off, and y'all's captain, who I guess was not played when he was a kid but hadn't in a while, wins it with so much vigor it goes back into the corners. That's my favorite thing.
Shout out to Zach Schaefer.
There you go
on that one.
That's one of my favorite Charleston hockey moments for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we should pass that on. You got to win the ceremony.
Yeah, you win it with vigor too. Not back to a defenseman on the blue line, but back to where the goalie would be.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I'm so glad you remember that, because I probably would have forgotten it otherwise.
Dude, it's so good.
All right, well, I think we're about good to start wrapping up here for today. But we've got, you and I could talk about this movie for weeks at a time, I'm sure.
Yep.
And so I'm really excited.
As we have.
I'm really excited to dig into it with other people that were involved, get their shared perspectives, and see where they cross over. See where we're gonna find out things we had no idea about probably, which will be interesting. And we are hopefully gonna see soon the reaction of the audience. And like we said, we're cool either way, but I think people will like it. And
I think so too. I just can't wait for this to be in the world, because all my guys in Denver, they're dying. They've been hearing me talk about it. They think I'm full of shit I keep saying the movie's almost done. So yeah, I can't wait for this to be in the world, to live, and people get to see it. And I hope that it's something that gives you that cozy feeling of whether you're currently playing or away from the game. I hope it really scratches an itch of, this is a hockey movie I've been looking for.
Yeah, I mean, it's years in the making, and these are days that we've been counting down to. And I think people walk away from watching it with a smile, and I hope that they feel good about it.
Samesies, man. I think we're on the track, man. It's gonna be out there. I can't wait.
Good work.
Right back at ya.